It's time to be unapologetic.
American news is more exciting to me than making love.
No safety net, no ceiling. You own it, you earn it. Free market capitalism rocks. My country.
It just makes you happy.
The American dream is dead.
120 days. Give me a break. My son did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong.
We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Southern California, America, the world. Welcome to Unapologetic, the Judd Dunning Hour on KABC with conservative host and author Judd Dunning.
When you hear the word equity, do you throw up just a little bit in the back of your mouth? Does critical race theory still mean to you how you plan to beat your best friend to the fridge for that last Heineken? Well, fear not, Southern California. There's a conservative cure for that, and it doesn't involve triple masking. Welcome to Unapologetic, the Judd Dunning Hour, here with you every Monday night, 7 to 8 p.m. on KABC, AM 790. Featuring our serious, intelligent, conservative, unapologetic guests, as well as a few laughs to ease your Monday blues during your primetime drive time here in Southern California and across the nation. I'm Judd Dunning, author of 13 and a Half Reasons Why Not to Be a Liberal and How to Enlighten Others, and Newsmax columnist and commentator, and your host, or as Olympic shot putter and silver medalist Raven Saunders calls me, the X Factor. It's August 2nd, and the time is 7:05 p.m. You're probably cruising from your car home, capitalistically content after crushing out yet another free market Monday. Yet, in a perfect act of Californication, people may soon be starving in the streets as the great California bacon blackout looms ominously in the distance. Now, if you haven't read the news, let me break this down. 2 years ago, our fair, kooky, crazy, overly compassionate, yet fiscally oblivious state voted for Proposition 12, the Farm Animal Confinement Act, giving our Eureka State pigs more yard space to humanely enjoy their final days, which sounded like a no-brainer for those of us who like to use our California state ballot box as a virtue-signaling antidepressant or to get a cool new bumper sticker slapped on their pro-pig Prius, rather than conservatively and cautiously thinking through new legislation all the way to the end. Yet, with 45 million pounds of pork greedily gobbled in our golden state, California pig farmers and manufacturers, due to inflated land prices, COVID-created supply chain challenges, and skyrocketing construction costs, can't afford bigger facilities. Now, with only 4% of Cali hog houses in compliance, your bacon and pig prices are about to skyrocket 60% because you obviously need more inflation right now, Los Angeles. Government. See how it works? And ironically, as a hyphenated American minority myself, being vegan American, with all 3% of all Americans, or make that 5% if you add all vegetarians, you think I'd be betting the whole hog on this proposition as a plant eater who acknowledges the high intelligence and sentient awareness of our sus scrofa domesticus farm swine. Yet, I did not support this law for these very fiscally obvious reasons that are happening right now. And despite how hard you may have cried during Joaquin Phoenix's Joker Oscar speech, where he milk-shamed all non-vegans for selfishly taking cow's milk from its mother for our own consumption as a form of injustice that was equivalent to racism. Thank you. Racism, gender inequality, and queer rights. Yet, it always has, with no surprise. Big government pretty much destroys almost everything it intervenes in. When government toggles the levers of freedom and free markets, little things matter. Everything matters. That's why it's always better that we, the free people in our free markets, work it out. Conscious consumers can rise up and buy only free-range pigs. See how it works? You just have to be patient. We must trust the people and not make bacon the new caviar. It's not COVID, But government is the real virus in 2021 in Los Angeles, which grows larger and larger while you sleep, and even faster when you're awake and burnt out by COVID and simply properly distracted, bringing home your bacon for your own family and priority. But as we all know, big government only grows like a large pregnant sow surrounded by sweet corn and slop, and rarely contracts when freed and fed, except under Trump, with his add one, remove two legislation laws, or other periods of deregulation that only the right advocates for and administers, not the left. And this fat pig, a.k.a. big government, is exactly what the progressive left progresses doing, creating its future failed policies that limit and restrict your free choices and our free market that both can always solve anything better over time, patiently, conservatively. Meanwhile, in the local, state, and federal registries where the laws and regulations actually exist, the liberal left keeps aggressively attacking our state and federal constitutions with little law after little law as your liberties slowly erode away. And these progressive pigs can't get enough power, never understanding that pigs get fat, yet hogs get slaughtered, which we'll soon see with Gavin Newsom in his recall, 2022 and 2024. Liberalism is self-canceling. There'll be no putting lipstick on this pig here tonight. And as the great Thomas Jefferson once said, much bad government has grown out of too much government. And this is just as true today as it was then. California is a progressive pigsty of bad bills. Old McDonald here at KABC is in the studio. Thank you, Art. But my friends, besides the great bacon bungles leftists like Newsom, Garcetti, Bonin, and Biden are going whole hog on your God-given rights in 2021, and the examples are many in California. Prop 47, destroying our streets with crime by reducing sentences under 950 to misdemeanors. Newsom's gun violence red flag restraining order, which allows people who can just flag you and take away your Second Amendment rights and put you on a watch list. Did you know that was out there? Orwellian California, 1984, Bill 1482, statewide rent control caps, stopping the free market from correcting itself, basically redistributing money from landlords to tenants. These fair people also rose up from often nothing. SB 714, navigating, this is scary, investigating any doctors that question the vaccine. After 5 reports, you get turned in and you could lose your license. So how are California doctors even telling us about the perils of the vaccine? Because there's definitely a few in the small print. SB 24, allowing abortions on college campuses in 2023. Welcome to those campuses. Ethnic studies in all our schools, a.k.a. critical race theory. That the elitist progressive political piggies are promulgating on our people. And don't be deceived, California, our politicians, they don't live under these laws that they put upon us. As George Orwell wrote in Animal Farm, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Let's not take out all our dirty English laundry here tonight. Can anybody say Larry Elder? Let's get that vote out. Let's recall Gavin Newsom, Southern California. It's time for a revolution of rationality in California, and I'm voting for Elder. We deserve a change. So I'm going to bring on this guest. I got carried. I was a pig with the first segment of this show, but I want to bring on our first guest to say hello. He's coming on in just a minute. So the great Officer Brandon Tatum is joining us tonight. Thanks for coming, Brandon.
Hey, my pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's so great to have you. And LA, now I have to say, theofficertatum.com, theofficertatum.com. Brandon, you're here for a reason because you're one of the people I go to. You're one of the unapologetic voices that's taken on race and policing and woke culture. And we're so excited to have you. We're going to be right back after the break. We're going to bring Brandon on for the rest of that segment. And thank you for coming. And welcome every Monday night, all summer long on KABC AM 790. Okay, great. We're back. So, Brandon, I wasn't sure if I was going to get you at the very beginning. We had a little technical thing, so I did the long form of that pig monologue. So thanks for hanging in there. Listen, Brandon Tatum, former police officer and author of Beaten Black and Blue, Being a Black Cop in America Under Siege. You've been you're a YouTube sensation. You're a regular Fox TV guest. So great to have you here, man. You're really talking to the truth of racism, policing, and the woke agenda. So thank you again for coming.
My pleasure.
Right on. So listen, you're going right after the truth. So let's jump in. Yeah, I wanted to ask you this question. And what are your unapologetic truths that you want to tell LA, that you want people to know, that they need to know to shake themselves out of the matrix into the reality of what it is just to be a good American. So as transparency means transparency, not Jim Crow 2.0 as Biden put it, with 69% of black Americans supported voter ID. What is and there are 30 million black Americans, and I don't think the left cares about them. I don't, or immigrants. I think they just use them for division and power. I think history proves that the lefts were the actual racists, and you've been pounding on that on your station, just rational. Now it's like cultural Marxism and dressed up as false compassion. What is the truth about this attack on America through racism from your eyes as a black American police officer in 2021?
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to, make sure people are clear on this. I'm an American first. I'm a child of God before that, and then everything else follows. But I think there's an agenda pushed by the liberals and the Democratic Party to gain power. It has nothing to do with the people, has nothing to do with your health care, has nothing to do with your rights, unity. None of those things are a factor to the Democrats. They just want power. And the more power they get through division, the stronger they get, and the more they polarize us so the elite can remain wealthy and the poor continue to get poorer.
Yeah. And what fixes this attack on equity and equality? Now, I heard you say something great, by the way. And yeah, I think it was great how you corrected that, or you said it yourself. I agree. It's like we come first to God. And you said on your show recently, it's not about black privilege, white privilege. It's about Christ's privilege, something you definitely keep in the front of your show. So what do you think? What is their agenda from your point? You're taking on, the truth, man. You've looked at a lot of your videos, like police events. You just completely break them down piece by piece. Said, hey, this isn't racism. This is policing. This is what's happening. And when it has happened, you said this was inappropriate. So what's their agenda?
Well, I think it's very clear. If someone wants to observe policing in a very impartial way, you could see when police officers are doing things wrong. I made a video about a cop who kicked a lady in handcuffs right in the face. I think she spit on him. He kicked her. Clearly that's wrong. Stevie Wonder can see that that's wrong. But there are a lot of other nuances to policing that I think people would only understand if they did a ride along with the police department, if they took the time to do research on use of force continuum and different things like that. The leftist agenda, like I said, I believe that they want to federalize police. They want to claim to defund the police. They want to actually defund the police, hurt morale on the police department, cause police officers to retire, quit, and lateral at breakneck speed. And then once the crime rate goes out of control, they blame the Republicans as they push towards federalizing the police. And what they win on if they federalize the police is that once they tell you you need to wear a mask or you need to have a vaccine, they can utilize force against you on a federal level, which right now states have rights and municipalities can decide to not abide by those anti-American unconstitutional principles. So I think they have a clear agenda that they're pushing, and we better be prepared to fight back.
Right. And how do we fight back in your tip of the spear approach? One is definitely your free speech platform. What else?
Well, it's about individualism, right? You need to, the way you fight back is to prepare yourself to be the best version of yourself and take care of your family and optimize your own house. And then you will be able to move forward. One of the things that I do to prepare is that I buy as much ammo and rifles as I can right now. And I'm prepared in case it has to go there. However, voting is another element in which we need to abide in. We need to participate in, because we need to spend our time, effort, and energy making sure our elections are fair and voting out these criminals, and especially in California. You guys have a plethora of criminals. I think most of the criminals abide in California. They need to be recalled. They need to be voted out. And we can get patriots in there that are going to turn the tide. And if that doesn't work, then obviously we have our constitutional rights to stand up to tyranny.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I was pulled over. We're talking about defunding the police, and there's a definitely deconstruction of civil society here. In California, we have Prop 47, right? And it's nuts. It's like anything under 950. It's not. There are thieves that are saying, if I go over 950 with a calculator, right, then they know they can get locked up. And they're really starting to run wild in our state. And, drugs are starting to, people don't get busted for drugs around here. And my personal story is I was a cop magnet, man. I used to, in South, we didn't call them drug addicts. They called them people who raised hell. So I would drink, do a little bit of cocaine, a little bit of weed. I was this wild kid, man. I came from my house was messed up, good people, but messed up. And I got pulled over like 50 times. And eventually I got busted. And I was going to get kicked out of college. And I got sober in the 80s. And it changed me. And I know so many people, as we continue to pull away at our society and tick away at police, that would probably get help, that aren't getting help because we're neutering the police. Do you ever think about that as a cop, on a compassionate level? The more that we deconstruct civil society, the more that people don't fall into the problem area of the police and then get their lives together.
Yeah, I think that, when I was a police officer, one of the greatest things that I was able to do is to speak life into people and get them help when they needed it. Sometimes people need to go to jail. It's not always a rehabilitation. Sometimes jail is the best rehabilitation for a lot of people. It's not rubbing the back of their head and reading them lullabies. People are hardcore committing crimes, and sometimes the only way to stop them if you get them off the street for a period of time, they go to jail and realize they never want to go back. So policing can be a great tool to help people get to a better place in their life by waking them up. I look at the police like your dad. You can go around and act a fool, and then when dad find out, you're going to pay for it. And after you pay for it, you'll never do it again. And I think the police can serve as that principle as long as they're doing what they're supposed to do and abiding by the law and treating people with respect and dignity. I think police can be very effective in that way.
You boomed during the riots, right? You did. You came out Trump supporting, honest about George Floyd. The anti-white narrative got 2.4 million views. George Floyd got 2.8. Ahmaud Arbery. So you said, hey, I'm going to stand as a moral absolutist for what is good. So what was that? Did your life change radically, or were you already that person down there from your roots in, I believe, Phoenix, right?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas. I came to Arizona when I played football at the University of Arizona, but, so I've been here for about 15 years. Those videos, I've never been fake a day in my life, so I don't really know how to be fake. So when I comment on things that are going on in the country, I just look at them from a very truthful, basic, logical standpoint. And in the midst of a country where people are majority sheep and people are afraid to stand up and tell the truth, sometimes people can't. So I understand that level as well. But in a time where people were being fraudulent and fake and afraid, I just stood up and told the truth, and my life did change. My social media following went up by over 1 million. Obviously, that helps financially. And also it helps with influence. And I've been able to be in places and speak to crowds that I wouldn't have been able to speak to if I had not stood up and told the truth. So it was an incredible time in my life. And I really just am happy and excited that I've been able to impact other people to stand up and tell the truth.
I put you up. Dinesh D'Souza came out and said, hey, let's look at history in America about the left and racism. Larry Elder, David Webb, Candace Owens, there's Shelby Steele. And I'm putting you up there, Brandon. L.A., follow theofficertatum.com, theofficertatum.com. See him on YouTube too. And your book, tell us about your book. You've got this great new book, Beaten Black and Blue, Being a Black Cop in America Under Siege. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the book is coming out in November the 30th, which it took a while because of COVID. But we put the book out, and it's an incredible book. I put my heart into it. It was a dream that I had when I was a police officer 5 or 6 years ago, and it just came to fruition. In the book, I tell a little bit about my life, how I became a police officer from a young man with Young Savage tattooed on my stomach and gold teeth in my mouth, how I became a police officer from that, how I became more conservative. And then also I talk about defunding the police. What are the repercussions of that? Police brutality. What is real police brutality versus fake narrative police brutality on media? And I interviewed at least 5 officers, one of which who is an officer that the reason why I became a police officer, Officer Sean Payne. But I interviewed 5 officers to give their perspective on what's going on, how how it feel in this current climate being police officers. And also at the end of the book, I give solutions to the problem. I mean, all of the officers that I interview give their solutions. I put the icing on the cake with the solutions to the problem, and that's the book in its entirety. So I just, if people are interested in getting the book, visit beatingblackandblue.com. You can visit theofficertatum.com. Either one of those websites, you can find my book.
Great. You guys, definitely, I like to bring unapologetic voices on here. So here's what I want to run by you. Critical race theory is a practice of interrogating race and racism in society. CRT recognizes that race is not biologically real, but is sociologically constructed and socially significant. It acknowledges that racism is embedded within systems and institutions that replicate racial inequality codified in law because America is a racist nation. So is America a racist nation from a black, I'm just using your example because people need to hear it, from an American police officer?
You know what I like to call myself is an American of African descent. So
okay, thank you. American of African descent. Thank you.
I get that from my good friend James T. Harris, but this country is not racist.
Amen.
You know, this country is not. There's no systems of racism. The racism, the systemic racism they're talking about is the boogeyman. They're cut from the same cloth. I mean, they cannot find a single person in these institutions that are actually practicing or putting racism forward. So since they can't find it, which will give them the opportunity to change it, they come up with the boogeyman. You know, I've been living in this country for 34 years. I went to an all-black school with nothing but thuggery and gangbanging. You know, there was some good at my school, but I lived in these environments. I've lived in all-white neighborhoods. I patrolled black communities, white communities, Hispanic communities. And I'm here to say that this country is not systemically racist. There are a bunch of knuckleheads out here. I wouldn't say that most of the population is, but there's a few knuckleheads out here that still are stuck on stupid, and that can be white or black. But the majority of the population in this country is not racist. This country wasn't founded on racism. And I think this country had a negative past to a certain degree. You know, parts of the past of this country was negative. But overall, this is the greatest country on planet Earth. We were the first nation in the entire world and world history to believe that you have inalienable rights that are given to you by God. And we set that forward in our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence.
Amen. This was the most important. But Brandon, I would be honored if we could get you back on the show. Thank you so much for the Judd Dunning Hour. And you just heard from the great officer Brandon Tatum and soon Patrick Wood of the Citizens for Free Speech. What a show. Okay, LA. Rule 62. Never take yourself too seriously, especially as there's now only 1,192 days until the Obama 2.0 Harris, Pelosi, Xi Jinping, and Biden presidency is out of office, but who's counting except us weekly? So it's time again for that comedic relief moment of our show.
That's right, Southern California. It's time for the Conservative Comedians Counter Cancel Culture Corner.
That's right, KABC AM 790. Each week at our show's halftime, I or another conservative comedian guest take on cancel culture by seeking cancellation. After all, it's just comedy. And last we checked, the Constitution allows it. So good evening. I'm Judd Dunning, and welcome to our 3 to 5 minute combustible news you can use, mostly to get doxxed or force vaccinated. Republicans pushed back this week after Nancy Pelosi's House mask-wearing orders. She's gone totally nuts, they said. We all know Nancy loves the mask because it keeps her false teeth from falling out. I know there's a lot of distraction over this mask mandate, but why aren't we asking the real questions like, why isn't Hillary in jail? Pelosi is enforcing masks in Congress while maskless super spreaders cross our borders. We can now avoid this mask controversy with a cure for COVID, the wall. BLM targeted and tried to cancel Rhode Island Senator Whitehouse for his membership at Bailey's Beach Club because it was too white for them, although it welcomes all members of color and has several black members. I'm looking forward to the next headline when the senator gives BLM the ultimatum to cut ties with the all-black Congressional Black Caucus. I applaud BLM's aggressiveness and extortion. Since they'll be going to the Senators Club, office, and home, I sure hope they'll find the time to make a pit stop in Chicago with this attitude and use it against black-on-black violence. Or maybe BLM progressives should stick to what's been working for them, and that's looting black-owned businesses and the occasional burning of Target. Because voter integrity and reform are not foxy enough, Fox News pulled Mike Lindell's $50 million a year ad campaign after a disagreement over a commercial linked to an election fraud claim. Way to go, Fox News. You've just smothered your primary source of ad revenue with a pillow. As a result, Fox will be down to one remote staff party a year. If Trump still could tweet, it would be at Fox News LMFAO. Sad face. Don't worry, Fox News. I'm sure Viagra is willing to make a bill. This is a monumental moment in history when Democrats and Republicans have both agreed to make sure that their woke millennial children and their children's children will be all guaranteed a safer and better country, the united shambles of Venezuela. As a matter of fact, this bill was even written on black market toilet paper. Not exactly the solution for skyrocketing inflation. Even Hunter Biden exclaimed, "What the hell is the GOP doing?" And then he took out his magic marker and wrote in, "and 10% for the big guy." Two whistleblowers claim the Department of Health and Human Services instructed them to downplay a COVID virus outbreak among migrant children in a facility in Texas. I have the cure for the COVID outbreak in the U.S. Send them back to their countries. Problem solved. The circle of life for progressives is as such. First, they feel sad when someone dies from COVID, then happy after hearing he or she wasn't vaccinated, then decimated again because he was an illegal alien who couldn't have voted Democrat twice. The headline should be more appropriately titled, "Biden's concentration, aka voter training camps, are giving kids COVID." And Biden says, "Nothing to see here, folks." Thanks for coming to Unapologetic, our war on behalf of free speech. And more importantly, never forget the words of the great George Washington before he too gets canceled. If the freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. God bless you. God bless America. And God bless AM radio. All right, man, you are here after another amazing show on KABC. We're so honored to be in co-creation with this great staff, this great city, and thank you for your mind and heart and your ears, Los Angeles. Now, so you're here on Unapologetic, the Judd Dunning Hour, KABC, AM 790. So let's get to our second guest. We're so honored to have the Citizens for Free Speech founder and author and journalist, Patrick Wood, an expert on globalization and technocracy. He's the author of Technocracy, The Hard Road to World Order, Technocracy Rising, the Trojan Horse of Global Transformation, and more. Patrick, thanks so much for hanging in there, and thanks for being on the show.
Judd, it is my pleasure to be on KABC. It's one of my favorite stations over the years. And believe it or not, that was one of the first stations I was ever on back in somewhere around 1979, I want to say. Oh, I found that's your monogrammed handkerchief I found here on the floor. I was wondering whose that was. So anyway, that's great. It's funny. A lot of people at KABC's been around since 1925. I mean, it's such an honor to be here. You know, sir, you are doing some great business out there. You've got a biblical worldview. You've got deep insights into what the modern attacks are it's comedian cancel court. Let's do it again. All right. I think we had a little glitch there. Property rights and personal freedom. And, you know, you have really been tracking what's been coming against our Constitution and the removal. You think the removal of our U.S. Constitution if we don't get to this. So it's timely to have you. I mean, things that you thought were going to happen are actually happening. So what's that like for you? Well, it's I don't want to say it's depressing, and I can't really say it's activating either. But it was kind of expected in a way. COVID was a curveball, though. When COVID first started to spin up last year, I was just amazed first, like everybody else, I think, that it happened so quickly. But it brought out the worst in everything we had been looking at for so many years, and we are under massive attack right now on our Constitution like never before in history, and in particular, the First Amendment, which is all about communication, top to bottom. All 5 points have to do with communication. Yeah, and, so your 5 points are on your website, and folks, go to Citizen for Free Speech. If you want to see it broken down so clearly, you've just done a fantastic job. Continuing, Patrick. Well, the idea of this revolution right now, in our opinion, is to decimate free speech through the destruction of the First Amendment. Everything that's happened in this whole COVID debacle has been a direct attack on free speech. Now, I know there's other agendas and stuff in play, but you just have to think about it. Churches being shut down. California was hit very hard on that. Churches told how to worship and how to assemble and how to
how to play music and stuff. It's ridiculous. Free speech has been censored all over the place, all over social media and other big tech companies. You've had the right to assemble, dictated by mandates and stuff, where you can't have more than 50 people or 25 people assembling at a time. These are all direct attacks on the First Amendment, Judd. This is what has us so, let's say, excited right now in kind of a not positive or negative sense, but just, we're really anxious to get this message out to America so that they can see they need to stand up now, not next week, not next month, not next year. It's right in our face right now, and America is under attack. I would also point out every revolution in the last 200 years has started with an attack on the media. The first thing the revolutionaries do is they take out the media, the newspapers, the TV, the radio stations, and so on. This was legendary in Russia. It was legendary in Nazi Germany. Other Marxist takeovers around the country. That's what they did every time, and this is happening to us right now. Right as we speak right now.
They've said it so clearly. The authoritarianism does not match the science. Dr. Robert Malone, MD, MS, inventor of the mRNA vaccines. And, you on your website, you've gone right to the heart of the matter. Los Angeles, California, America, the world. Go to Citizens for Free Speech, because what he has on there on his landing page in these trying times, what you need to know about informed consent brochures and a no mask card and lanyard from the great Dr. Blaylock. You've also got Tenpenny, I see, on your advisory staff. So it is an exciting time, right? Because if the darkness is out in the light, there's something to stand against. They just did it in France, which was amazing. Who knew we'd be turning back to France and Russia to inspire America to stand up for itself? We've become so compliant. So what is the solution? And what do you think about your informed consent about getting vaccinated? Like how do Americans use free speech to defend that in your understanding?
Well, number one, local activism is the key to the future of America at this point. What happens on a local basis with local activists, foot soldiers, if you will, this is going to determine the fate of America. It's not going to be Washington, D.C. It's not going to be the president. In most cases, it's not going to be state governments either. It's going to be what local citizens do in their own community, and they need to get busy. We're training people, activists, how to communicate again, to learn how to communicate in the civic arena, to be successful and persuasive and heard, most importantly. But we've lost those skills in the last year and a half, especially. People have been browbeat so bad, canceled out, ratted on, you name it. And so, nobody wants to talk anymore. This has to change, too. So, local activism is a thing. This is how they broke us down in the first place, by going to the local communities to implement all these crazy policies.
Patrick Wood of Citizens for Free Speech. We're going to be right. All right, Los Angeles, Southern California, America, the world. My passionate politicos, soon to be pig-free. If you listen to the first half of the show, we are back with Patrick Wood. And I love triple alliterations. We're here, the Citizen. He's from the Citizens of Free Speech, an amazing author. And look, we need all hour with Patrick, and this show's going to keep going, so I want to back. So, Patrick, I have a few minutes to ask you a few questions. So let me ask you this question. So they're coming after our free speech. They want you to get vaccinated or to wear a mask. Do they have a right? And what can you do to stop somebody if they're imposing on your First Amendment?
Yeah, we do not believe they have the right to do it. Now, we also know that society now is full of bullies who want to insist that you don't have any of those rights, that you must do what they say. This can only be met by a firm statement in individuals. We will not comply. Unfortunately, the cost of noncompliance often really hurts. Nurses, for instance, that are mandated to get vaccinated in a hospital, many of them are quitting. They say, no, I'm not going to do it. And it costs them their job. Other people are in the same situation, other types of businesses as well. And, it's going to cost us something, and we need to figure that out. We just can't sit back and take the convenient way out of this and just say, I'm not going to do anything. I don't want to get involved. The day for that is gone. We need to figure out what it takes and stand up. And you mentioned, I think you mentioned what was happening in France or maybe Germany. There are hundreds of thousands of people in European countries that are taking to the streets over these lockdowns and mandates and, the vaccine passports.
Right.
They're raising holy cane over there. And where's America on this? Well, America, by and large, has trouble, rallying 50 people to make a protest on any of this kind of stuff. But I think we're going to get to that point where people are going to start coming out saying, I'm not putting it up anymore. The thing with local activism, Judd, is that our director of training, Mary Baker, who, by the way, is formerly from Southern California, from Poway, actually, she says in her training, which is just absolutely true, if you don't have a seat at the table, and this is in your local community for sure, if you don't have a seat at the table, you are what's on the menu for dinner. This needs to sink into people. They need to get a seat at the table somewhere, start finding out what's going on in your community, and put your input in. You have that right to do that. You need to make yourself heard effectively to drive this stuff out from the ground up.
Let me drop this one fact in. I think context is conservatism in my mind. That's how we see the big picture. 320 people dying of COVID per day. And during the flu, it's usually 312 a day in the normal flu. 1,700 dying per day of heart disease, 1,600 of cancer, 473 from accidents. The COVID death rate is a tenth of what it was at its peak. 9 of the 10 most populated cities are recording 5 or fewer COVID deaths per day. And yet we're talking about more and more shift to government. So, conservatives are conservative, right? We don't want to be in other people's business. We just want to have the individual freedom and free speech for our own. Now, I know from that you agree with that. But then when you put yourself and the public, is there risk? Is there any law? Is there any mandate besides private enterprises saying you couldn't enter a building?
No, there really isn't. And, America right now is following guidelines. This is the rule of law is a thing in America that was pretty much encoded into our original, constitutional DNA. The rule of law is supposed to apply to everybody uniformly, and Congress makes the laws. The states make laws. We've been following, with government pressure, we've been following guidelines. Who the heck ever said we needed to follow guidelines? That is not law. And we have said from the beginning, if you want to do this stuff, go get a law passed. That's what they told us for the last 50 years. If you don't like the way the system is, you ought to just go, get a law passed somewhere, and then everybody will obey it. Well, The shoe's on the other foot now. They should start trying to pass laws. Now, I'll tell you what, they wouldn't get away with it. I think I don't think there's any state in the nation that would pass half this stuff that they press down on us via guidelines.
Los Angeles, Southern California, America, the world. I like the big picture. We're here with Patrick Wood, Citizens of Free Speech. Folks, you can donate and support this truth-busting patriot and his entire staff there. They have products you can buy for informed consent, for first speech. You can get involved locally. I just want to send everybody to his website, citizensforfreespeech.com or .org, Patrick? .org. And a great author. Look him up. He's got some amazing trees. A very intelligent economist. So if you want to look at the big picture and how globalism is coming to the world, that's a whole nother show. Patrick, I'm out of time. I just want to thank you so much. You said some very important words to some very worried Americans. So thank you so much for coming to the show.
My pleasure, Judd. Anytime.
Thank you, sir. You are here, KABC, Judd Dunning's Unapologetic. And thank you. Thank you again for coming. I always like to end with a few final thoughts. I just want to let me open up. Do you feel kind of ripped off? Getting the vaccine, if you did, that your government, your family, your friends, your peers, and then finding out it doesn't really absolutely work. I mean, there's so much pressure. How bad does that suck? This has been the biggest big government bait and switch of the decade. And by the way, the vaccine didn't really work, but you can keep your health care, I promise. This is big government, like we opened up at the beginning, blowing up another assignment. I say we fire them. I say we just stay with what they are minimally supposed to do, as outlined in Adam Smith's laissez-faire economics in The Wealth of Nations. Best they just stay with defense, justice, roads. They can enforce contracts, grant patents, encourage innovation and new ideas. And then go the hell home. As my dad said when I was young, the government can stay the heck out of my business. It was really about just trusting individuals. We trust our families. We trust faith. We trust God. We thought we were in the beginning to rebuild as COVID was finally ending, and they want us back. In the words of Michael Corleone, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. And the delta of change they seek is ironically delta itself. So the first step, as we heard from the great Patrick Wood and Brandon Tatum, is this. This is the very first step, and that is always staying unapologetic. Live true to yourself. Live true to what you question. America was never meant to tune out on. We were always supposed to question authority and do it boldly and passionately and be unapologetic. God bless you. God bless America. God bless America. God bless America. God bless America. God bless America.